KDKR's daily programming do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
So when do fees make sense and when do they not make sense? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Send a question in and I will get you taken care of. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. And if you ever do miss one of the episodes of Prudent Money, we do podcast every single show. And you can go listen to that at prudentmoney.com or iTunes or just whatever platform, let me say it that way, whatever platform that you use to get your podcasts, well, we're probably on it. I think we're on just about every major one. So go check that out as well. That's a good way to get information on your time and not the time of the radio show. So last week we were talking about target date funds and why those are creating not only liability for the employer, but surprises for the investor. Let's start with the investor. It creates surprises because investors think they're taking a whole lot less risk than they may be taking, and they're getting these surprise losses that they were not expecting based on what those target date funds are kind of marketed to do and not to do. A little bit of confusion with those. They do also pose liability for the employer, really for the same reason. And I take it back to what the mutual fund industry has done from a marketing standpoint with these funds, and made it look like, oh, this is the strategy for risk. Just as a review, you invest your money into the fund that best represents the target date of your retirement. So let's say you're going to retire in 2040, then you'll put your money into the 2040 fund. As that money grows and gets closer to retirement, the money managers reduce risk in that fund. So by the time that you get down towards retirement, you're not taking as much risk. I've always argued the problem with target date funds is that they don't reduce, let me say it this way. Their version of decreasing risk is definitely different than what I would call decreasing risk. And so I think what ends up happening is the person who's right there, and I've been getting a lot of emails about, hey, I'm about to retire. What do you think? Could you look over this information? Getting ready, just a lot of people getting ready to retire, which is good stuff, as long as they're taking the right steps to make sure that they get there and arrive at good timing. But the target date funds have created a lot of reasons for people to doubt that marketing. And what ends up happening, I explain this as well, it comes down to the cycle, is that those target date funds look great in bull market cycles, but they don't look so great when in a bear market cycle, especially if that bear market cycle we're seeing bonds lose money and stocks lose money. I think that that's been the big story of the year, and one that I think mutual fund companies are kind of shying away from is the fact that bonds that are portrayed as an investment that is stable, doesn't lose money, which is furthest from the truth. In the right environment, bonds could be just as risky as stocks. In fact, at the end of I was really taken by surprise when I looked at the numbers at the end of September 30th, to find that stocks and bonds were not that far apart in loss for the year-to-date numbers. But last week I didn't really get to talk about this as much as I wanted to, so I wanted to mention, what can investors do versus what can employers do to decrease liability. I think what you have to do when you're at the end of the year like we are today, it's so very important to go through and look at your investments and go, okay, what do I need to do different and if you're with an advisor, you might want to ask the advisor, what are you going to do different to get better results, get different results than we got this year? As you can imagine, most investors have lost money this year. It's been a tough year. So if you're looking at these target date funds, you might consider at the very least building your own target date fund with bonds and stocks. But there's so many more things you can do with a 401k plan. This is why I think it's very important. Obviously, there's a bias to this because I am one, but to have a financial advisor look at it and make sure that you're looking at everything you need to look at. But from the standpoint of an employer, I think that they need to determine, are we with the best version of target date funds? And they're, just about every, or a good majority, let me say it that way, a good majority of mutual fund companies have target date funds available as an option. And they all call them different things. They call them lifestyle funds, target date funds. Those are the two kind of the most popular names. But they all work the same thing, the same way. So the first question I would have as an employer, can you document that you are in the best of the best target date funds if you're going to keep this strategy? If you're not, then maybe you switch to a target date strategy that's better. That's if you're just hesitant to get rid of target date funds. If you're not hesitant to get rid of target date funds as an employer and a fiduciary of your plan, then you definitely want to make sure that employees know, hey, this is what we're doing and this is why. I think that goes a long way to help. Now, this, of course, is just general ideas I'm giving an employer as to how to reduce liability. You need to take a look at it and determine on your own whether it makes sense or not. But some of the things that you could do that I'm really surprised employers are not doing. And yes, I'm going to say the word mandatory. Make financial education classes mandatory during working hours. Give up a little bit of work time to provide resources in classes and have those classes periodically throughout the year to where they're not very long classes. You could even have them in webinar form and build a library for employees to go and check out. There's so many things you can do with this, and I'm surprised they don't do it. The second thing is offer the services of a financial planner and partner with a financial planning firm to where there's 2 or 3 different planners that are available, and you can make some kind of a fee arrangement with them or pay for part of it. The employee pays for a very marginal part of it. Lots of ways you can do that, but making it available is something that would go a long way. Then as far as income strategies, we talked about the companies want to bring in income strategies to where employees can in their 401k plan and put money into an annuity, and then that annuity pay out an income stream down the road. I think there definitely has to be quite a bit of planning and analysis before you do that, not just elect to do it. And the second thing is the 401k plan utilizing consistently the best company? If you look at income strategies amongst all the different companies, you are going to get different results. And so you want to make sure you're with somebody who's consistently, let's say, in the top 5 or top 10% or something to that degree. So just a couple of things that, I think this is a good time of the year to really look and analyze things and determine, hey, am I on the right path? What should I be doing differently? Because you don't want to not look and not evaluate. Maybe a good time to go see a financial advisor as well and just take a look and make sure that you're not sitting here in 2023, December of 2023, saying, wonder why 2023 did not work out too well for me. So just a couple of things to think about and make sure you're doing the right thing. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. As always, if you have a question for me, like I said just about a few minutes ago, not the other day, is that I've received a lot of emails asking questions about retiring, what I should be doing going into retirement. Maybe they're 3 years out, maybe they're 1 year out. Most of them are close. They're 1 to 2 years out. And absolutely today, if you are 1 to 3 years out, there's without question moves that you need to be making and steps you need to be taking if you're even considering that. So you can always send an email with your questions to the Ask Bob section at prudentmoney.com and make sure that you're not missing something, because this is I find this consistently, and it makes sense that that people feel this way, but the level of stress and anxiety that retirement causes, it almost doesn't make sense. It makes more sense that you're looking forward to retirement and that you are getting to a place where you got all your ducks in a row. You're taking the right amount of risk appropriate for you. You know exactly where the money's going to come through. You got the system set up, the process set up. You've got a plan to reallocate it to retirement, maybe in a different plan than your 401k, probably a different plan than your 401k. Should be a time of, hey, this looks great, can't wait for this to happen, but yet you fear the question in the back of your mind: Am I quitting at the right? Am I retiring at the right time? Because I'm cutting off a cash flow and now I'm going to depend on a brand new system. It is a stress creator, and it can create a lot of fear. That's why planning is so important, because it decreases that amount of stress and fear. If you have any questions, just go to the website and send me an email. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. Stick around. I'll be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org. At PastorChuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at PastorChuck.org, a full library of great teachings by Kay Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org.
Some people just love being in control. But when their power is slipping, it seems like they do almost anything to keep it. Well, Tuesday on Focal Point, Pastor Mike Fabarez is continuing our biblical study on power plays and what not to do from the example set by King David, Ishbosheth, and Abner. That's Tuesday on Focal Point.
.8:30 a.m. on Bible School Radio 91.3.
Hi, I'm Jill Taylor, inviting you to join me each Saturday morning at 11 o'clock for Choose Life Radio. You'll hear people from across America sharing their stories of faith, forgiveness, redemption, and restoration. Choose Life Radio will encourage you to fully appreciate the gift of life. You may also find help for you or a friend in need. So please join me Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock right here on Bible School Radio 91.3.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Hey, I just want to make a plug for something. I'm not sure if they're at the end of their run of a Christmas gift at Prestonwood Church, but my wife and I, Sherry, went to that last Saturday night. And I was absolutely blown away by how phenomenal this roughly hour and a half, 40 minutes of a presentation of Christmas and the Christ story and the story of salvation. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I say all this to say, if you get an opportunity to go check this out, And next year, there's nothing, I don't know if they're still running next week or not. I would definitely go take a look at it, because it really, I have a musical background, so I just absolutely was blown away by the orchestra and everything, the incredible singers, vocalists. It was just, I can't say enough about it. I am sure that this will be a tradition that we will go back again year after year, but that's at Prestonwood Church. I wanted to go over a couple of emails that I've been getting, and this really has to do with taxes and fees, something to consider here at the end of the year. It says, Dear Bob, I was reading an article about taxes that we will owe on mutual funds that I hold. Can you comment about this from the standpoint of being in a regular account or an IRA? Well, first of all, yes, taxes, capital gains taxes, income taxes from in mutual funds are something you definitely want to make sure that you are aware of, because they will be paying out. If most mutual funds do this, they pay out in late November and December. And what ends up happening is that a mutual fund will buy and sell stocks or bonds, whatever they're doing, and they will incur a capital gain, and they will pass that gain on to you, the investor. The problem is, and I remember this distinctly the year 2000, after being in a bad year in the stock market, which was the year 2000, most funds were down, just kind of like they are today, and then boom, the mutual funds passed on the capital gains dividends to the investors by the end of the year, and they created a big tax bill. And I think we're seeing the same thing happen now. The reason those two times are similar is because they've built up a lot of gain because of the bull market, and they decided to sell some of those funds, creating a capital gain in the mutual fund. So what ends up happening is, if you're someone who religiously watches your accounts, so every day you pull up your accounts, see how they did, be aware of when your mutual fund is paying a mutual fund a dividend, a long-term capital or a short-term capital gains dividend, because what ends up happening is the valuation of that fund that you're seeing is going to reflect the loss of that dividend. So your fund could show it was down 8 to 9%, and you're freaking out because you're wondering why your fund is down 8 to 9%, but it's only temporarily down because that fund paid out a dividend, and that dividend gets put back into the fund, and when it gets put back into the fund, it acts as a gain that wipes out the loss. Hope that makes sense. So that's going to be happening this year. And when you have mutual funds that are down 20 to 30%, somewhere into that time period, then it's kind of an insult to injury. And so one of the things you want to look at is, should I be selling some of the funds in my portfolio that definitely that would create a loss? That's one thing. But maybe I want to sell them because these are not the same. At some point the market's going to rebound, whether it's this year, next year, or the year after. Depends on how long this bear market actually is. And you're going to want to be in the right funds to take advantage of the recovery based on your risk level. So that's the question that you have for every fund in your portfolio. Is this a fund that's going to offer a good recovery for me? Or is this loss something I can take? Maybe you invested something last year. You're going to hold it for a year, which is the difference between a long-term capital gain and a short-term capital gain tax. And maybe you just want to sell it to get that loss to offset some of your gains. Obviously, I'm just throwing out ideas. I'm not giving advice, just because Taxes are complicated. And you should have a financial advisor look at it and determine what makes the most sense. Just be aware of it and make sure that you know when they're paying dividends, and you can see and you can ask your advisor as to what might be the effect of those dividends, and just kind of take it from there. So that is something that's happening right now, and will be happening through the end of December. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you got a question for me, go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Send it into the Ask Bob section, and we'll get that taken care of for you. That's all at prudentmoney.com. One more Ask Bob as we go towards the end of the program here. I have a firm that is managing my 401k plan and charging a fee for it. How do I know if I'm getting something for the fees that I am paying? And that is the most appropriate question to be asking if you're paying a fee. What are they doing for you? Whether it's a company that manages your 401k plan or a financial advisor who manages money for you or charges fees for other things. Am I getting value for that fee? Now, there's many reasons. I mean, value is interpreted differently by each and every one of us. It could be that I just don't want to mess with it. As an investor, I don't want to have to deal with it. I don't want to have to stay up with it. And I want to delegate some of that. It's just like I don't enjoy mowing my yard, so I pay somebody to do that. Someone might look at that and say, oh, that's not, that's something you could do yourself and save that money, but I value not having to do that. I don't know if that's a good example, but that's true. So if you're paying somebody, and this is one of the things that you have to determine with your 401k plan, if the value is investment related, which it is for most people, then you've got to determine if it makes sense. Now, if they're charging a hefty fee and they're not really doing anything, you might want to think different, because you can remember this, especially on the 401k plans. You can always hire a financial advisor to look at that 2 times a year, 3 times a year, charge you a fee for doing so, and come out way much cheaper than paying an asset fee in a 401k plan. Just something to consider. Or you could also use a financial advisor that might be managing your IRA and your other investments outside your 401k plan to give you recommendations and take a look at the 401k plan as well. I personally believe that if an advisor is managing money for a fee, that they should, at no charge, look at 401k plans and make sure that they complement what they're doing in the money management. It's a turnkey system, and that's the thing. It just depends on the advisor. There's some advisors who are going to charge a fee every time you turn around. I don't really personally believe that that's necessary. I think that at some point you've got to look at it from a turnkey standpoint, that you are taking care of the client holistically and not just a portion of what they're doing. So make sure that you can that the fees do make sense, and know that there are advisors who do charge from a turnkey standpoint. But let's take a look at fees in general. There's really 2 types of fees that most of you are going to be looking at. The mutual fund has an investment fee that's broken up a little bit, taken out a little bit each time over 252 market days of the year. And then there is the advisor fee on top of that. And what ends up happening is that there's a lot of criticism in pop culture finance. They'll say, oh, you shouldn't be paying a fee based on the fact that fees add up over time, and they definitely decrease the amount of money that you make. Although there is some validity to that statement, it also, there's another side of that story to that statement. And it comes down to the argument of index funds versus actively managed funds. Unfortunately, I'm at the towards the end of the program here, so I can't jump into that. But I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's talk about that tomorrow, and talk about the times when you definitely should not pay a fee for something that an advisor is doing, and make sure that you know the difference between the two so that you're paying fees effectively. I think that is the point, and I think that's what you would like to make sure that you're doing. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Until we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.